Hello there everyone, today we're going to read the final chapters of A Week with Fluttershy, Always by Rarest Rarity 1779, and let's hop right into this. When the two reached Fluttershy's cottage, it was already past midnight, but they didn't care. It had been the best night that they had ever had since their first night together. They didn't even bother climbing the stairs to the bedroom. Fluttershy lay down on her side on the couch. She looked sweetly at Spike as she patted the empty space in front of her. It was a perfect size for Spike to crawl into, facing away from Fluttershy. Fluttershy placed her forehoof around Spike and hugged him in closer to her body. In turn, Spike took his hand and wrapped it around her hoof. Spike felt so safe wrapped in her hooves, like nothing could ever touch him. It only took them a few minutes to fall into a deep sleep, wrapped tightly in each other's arms, tighter and closer than ever before. Fluttershy was the first one to open her eyes in the next morning, glancing in at the sunlight streaming in through the windows, and looking down at the sleeping Spike wrapped in her hooves. She gently shook him awake and playfully whispered, "Good morning, sleepyhead." As he sat up in front of her and rubbed his eyes, he glanced at the clock and said more like good afternoon in a tired voice. He hopped off the couch and stood back as Fluttershy did so too. "Come on, it's time to feed the animals." She stretched her wings open and arched for her back. The two walked outside into the warm sunlight and went around one by one, dropping food into the animals' cages. Fluttershy was apologizing to each one that she was so late in feeding them. After that, they went around the back of the cottage and picked a few more fruits from Fluttershy's orchard. After that, though, they returned inside. Spike was instantly aware as he took one more look at the clock. "No!" he shouted. "Twilight will be here in a couple of hours." "No, Fluttershy, I don't want to go. I never want to leave you." He hugged into Fluttershy. She wrapped a hoof around him and said, "I know, don't worry though, you don't have to go." Spike looked up. "What?" he asked quizzically. "You can stay another whole week if you want. I know Twilight. Just tell her that you want to stay with me a few more days. I'm sure she'd like the free time to study." Spike looked up. "Really? I'll do it then." He hugged her tightly. "Hey Spike, I just want you to know that when you have to go back to the library, I'll always be here. I might even, She hesitated for a few moments. "I might even be on top of the hill." She blushed at her own romantic gesture. "I just can't find the words to tell you how much I love you," he said as he hugged into her even tighter. Eventually he pulled off of her, though. At last they had the best idea of what to do before in the last hour with each other. They decided to sit on the couch and talk about each other. They sat there on the couch, and as the minutes ticked by, they talked about everything. Fluttershy said that she had always liked Spike since the first day they had met, despite her fear of dragons when they grew, and Spike revealed to her that he always did like her shyness and timidity. Confirming her thoughts, he said it made her look twice as beautiful when she blushed and hid her eyes behind her mane. Naturally, Fluttershy blushed and hid her eyes from Spike. It seemed like it had only been a few minutes when a knock sounded at the door, and Twilight's voice rang. "Fluttershy, can I come in?" "It's me, Twilight. I'm here for Spike." Fluttershy and Spike took one look at each other, and Fluttershy gave him a quick kiss. They then hopped up, and Spike followed her over to the door. Fluttershy put open the door and said, "Twilight, come in." She stepped away, and Twilight walked in. "Afternoon, Fluttershy. Hey, Spike, did you miss me?" Spike nodded his head and chuckled, as always. Twilight glanced around and spotted a stain on the couch. "What happened to the couch?" she asked, curious of the origin of it, and making a mental note to give her a clean solution sometime. Fluttershy looked at it and nervous Spike and blushed as she looked away from Twilight. She hesitated. I had a nightmare and she saw Twilight nod her head in understanding. It wouldn't be the first time that Fluttershy had gotten scared and wet the bed. "Well, Spike, ready to go?" Twilight asked, clacking her hooves against the floor. Spike was speechless, nervous, but regained a little of his confidence as Fluttershy gave him a small, unnoticed nudge forward with her hoof. Twilight," he said nervously. I was wondering if you'll let me stay another week, here with Fluttershy." To both Fluttershy and Spike's surprise, Twilight asked, "Is that alright with you, Fluttershy? Can Spike stay with you another week?" Fluttershy perked her head up. "Of course, he can stay. He can stay as long as he likes, and he can come over anytime he likes." Twilight had a questioning look on her face, but brushed it off and said, "Great. I'm glad you two have become such great friends and are getting a chance to spend some time together." "Thanks a lot, Fluttershy. This takes a load off my hooves." Twilight took a few more paces toward the door. "If you don't mind, that is. He may have to stay here a little longer than a week. Rainbow Dash got into some serious trouble for her speeding. She says she has to appear before a court. Silly Feely traveling 330 zone. Twilight snorted. Should've known better. Twilight put her hoof on the knob. Anyway, she said that I could stay in her cloud house until the hearing, so I'll be a while. That okay with you, Fluttershy? Fluttershy nodded. Of course, I think it's wonderful that me and Spike have more time to spend together. Twilight then looked down at Spike. How about you, Spike? She asked. Spike nodded eagerly. Fine with me, Twilight. Have fun in Cloudsdale. Twilight giggled and said, well, I guess I'm on my way to pick up some things from the library and get ready. I can't thank you enough, Fluttershy. Fluttershy replied, oh no, Twilight, I can't thank you enough. Spike is a great help with the animals, and he's even greater to talk to. She smiled down at the little dragon. Twilight pushed open the door and walked outside. Okay then, I guess. I'll see you two later. If you need me, Fluttershy, just get Spike to send me a message. With that, she waved goodbye and reared up, going into a quick trot down the road. Fluttershy's cottage getting further and further away with every hoofbeat. Chapter 7. Fluttershy closed the door. Whew! That was a close one, Spike said as he walked over and observed the stain on the couch. You're telling me I didn't know what else to do? She replied as she walked over and stood beside Spike to observe the stain. I'm glad she let you stay, she said casually. Spike took a quizzical look and cocked his head at the stain. Are we really that messy? He asked, pointing towards the stain. She giggled and blushed. I guess so, she smiled down at him. I don't know about you, but all that work wore me out. He smiled sarcastically up at her, leading the way towards the stairs. Fluttershy followed him up the stairs and into her bedroom. She smiled and closed the door quietly as Spike jumped onto the bed, laying down flat. She walked slowly over to the bed and climbed into it at his feet. She snaked her way up, rubbing his neck and chest all the way down as she crawled up his body, stopping only when her face was level with hovering only a few mere inches from his. They were going to do it right this time. Fluttershy took her hoof and Spike did not even try to resist as she placed his head gently down onto a pillow, the very pillow that she slept on every night. Fluttershy moved forward and sat on top of him as she began to kiss all over his body, letting out giggles as Spike began to rub up and down her hips, moving up to her stomach and eventually out to her wings. Spike stopped his rubbing. In a quiet voice, he whispered to Fluttershy, I don't know about you, but I could do this every day. Fluttershy giggled and said, I know, I could too, but it has to be with you. She chided playfully. Fluttershy continued to kiss on Spike as he continued to rub on her hips and once even smacked her cutie marks hard, making Fluttershy let out a surprised shriek. After he realized what he had done, Spike blushed in remorse and said, I'm so sorry, Fluttershy. She only smiled and kissed him. It's okay, Spike, you can do that anytime you want. She then brought her head closer to his ear and whispered sensually, I only wish you would have done it a little harder. She then kissed him on the lips, then she worked from his lips and went from his neck and then worked lower and the end. And that ends A Week with Fluttershy. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this story. I know I have. And I'll see you guys in the next reading that I do. Have a great night.
100,000 stories have filled my head as I look for the answer